All right, the NHL season getting underway tonight, Friday, October 7th. We do have one game. It's Nashville San Jose playing in that global series. Everyone else will be starting, I believe, Tuesday. So I thought I'd give some season predictions. So we'll start with standings, Central Division. Unpopular opinion here, most likely everyone's going to have Colorado. I'm putting St. Louis. I think that the offensive core is going to carry this team. I think Thomas and Kyrou are going to really play even better this year with those big contracts they just signed. So I like the offense a lot. The defense, while they have some injuries, I think they will struggle a bit. The big question mark is going to be Bennington. I think he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to have a good season for them. He really has to. He does not have Ville Husso backing him up this year. So I have St. Louis finishing first. Not too far behind them, I have Colorado. I think they're going to have a bit of a cup hangover. They definitely did get a little bit worse during the offseason, but they are still the Avalanche. They still have a great core on the offense and defensively as well. And the only question mark for me really is in net with Gorgiev and Francouz. Is that tandem going to be good enough? They don't have to be great. They just have to be average, slightly above average. The team can probably take care of the rest, but it's definitely going to add some more losses to that category. So for that reason, I have them in second. Third place, I have Nashville. I like the additions of Ryan McDonough. I think that's a really underrated ad, as well as Nino Niederreiter on the offense. And if Forsberg, Duchesne, they can keep that production up. Obviously, they still have Roman Josi on the back end. Dante Fabro, super underrated defenseman. I like this. I like this core, and I think UC Saros is really going to have an amazing year. We'll see that in the predictions later, but I think he's going to really carry this team into the playoffs. He's going to play a ton of games this year, and I think Nashville gets in at third. And the last playoff spot is going to go to Dallas, in my opinion. I think that the additions of Mason Marchment coming over, I think that's a really good move for them. I think it's going to help the offense that definitely needs help. Signing Jason Robertson was a big move. Expecting some bounce backs from Sagan, Ben, hopefully. And if Pavelski can keep up the production, I think this team can make it in. And as well as Jake Ottinger and net, just if he can do anything close to that playoff series against Calgary, they're in good shape. Missing, unpopular opinion here probably, but I have Minnesota missing. I think that losing Kevin Fiala is a really big blow to this team. I don't think players like Eriksson Ek or Ryan Hartman can really replicate the season they just have. I think a lot of pressure is going to be put on Kaprizov and the young kids like Matt Boldy, Kalen Addison, Marco Rossi. I think it's going to be too much pressure. The defense is okay. I'm not hating on the defense. It's the goaltending. No more Cam Talbot, and I think Fleury. He didn't look great in the playoffs. His numbers last year weren't amazing, and he is getting older. He's a legend. Love Marc-Andre Fleury, but at some point he's going to start to regress, and I think this workload, might end up being too much for him, but we will see. Sixth place, I have Winnipeg. I think they just have so many problems off the ice, stripping the captaincy away. The whole Dubois thing that went on with him wanting to go to Montreal. This team missed the playoffs last year. Hellebuck did not have a great year. I'm not a big fan of the defense on this team, and it's really all going to rely on the offense. Players like Scheifele, Wheeler, who are getting older, and I think it puts even more pressure then on guys like Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti if he can step into a role. I don't think this team is going to be able to match some of the others in the Central. Seventh, I have Arizona. Team tanking. Obviously, they're rebuilding, so no surprise here. They have some good pieces like Keller, Schmaltz, and Chikrin. I like Carl Vamelka and net, but I could see some of those guys being traded off. But no surprise, Arizona's been stacking picks up, so seventh place for them. Eighth place, Chicago. I expect a pretty miserable season for the Blackhawks. They had a fire sale, during the offseason, letting go of Strome, DeBrincat, Kubalik, all both their goaltenders, Lincoln and Delia, gone. So with the group that's out there on the ice, Kane and Taves will probably be gone before the deadline. It's going to be a rough year. I see Chicago finishing last, which is good for them if they want to get Connor Bedard. So moving on to the Pacific. I have Edmonton finishing first. I really like the addition of Jack Campbell. He's looked good in the preseason. And then you obviously still have McDavid, Draisaitl. If you have those two on your team, you should be a playoff lock. I like some of the young guys coming up. Bouchard, Dylan Holloway looks really good so far in the preseason. And, you have Evander Kane for the full season. I really think this team can win this division. I think it's theirs to win. And second is Calgary, a team that, a few months ago people would have thought this team should just rebuild, but, they really made things work, grabbing Huberdeau and that trade along is Mackenzie Weegar also. I think that's a super underrated move. And then you grab Nazem Kadri. Offense should be good. It might take them a little bit of time to kind of gel and get the lines working together, but I like the offense. The defensive core as well is really strong, and I think Markstrom's going to have a good season. So Calgary I have finishing second. LA, up-and-coming team. They gave the Oilers a good fight in the playoffs. I really like the offense here. I like the addition of Kevin Fiala to an already really good offensive group. The defense as well. I like the depth on the defense. If hopefully Drew Doughty healthy a full season. Only thing a little questionable is the goaltending. Can Quick have another good season? And if he doesn't, can Peterson have a bounce back season? But I think they'll balance out. If one or the other doesn't have a good season, I think it'll counter each other. So LA I have in third, and then in the last playoff spot I have the Golden Knights. I know the big question is with goaltending. Robin Lehner out for the year, but I really do like Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill if that ends up being the combo. Laurent Brossoit can play as well, but I think those guys can get it done. The defense and the offense, if they're healthy, which was the big issue last year, which why they didn't make the playoffs, but if they are healthy for a full season, there's no reason that this team should not get into the postseason this year. Outside the playoffs, the Canucks, it pains me to do it. I like the Canucks. I really like, having Boudreau behind the bench. Once he came in, the team started really putting together some wins. I really like that they brought back JT Miller, signing him for the contract, not trading him. Like the core, Demko's a great goaltender. The defensive depth is kind of what gets me with this team is the defensive depth. And the offense does look inconsistent at times. Elias Pettersson, last year wasn't an amazing year for him. I think he can play a lot better, but I don't know. I think this team is good. I just think they're going to fall short, unfortunately. Next up in sixth, Anaheim Ducks. They're a rebuilding team, but they're getting closer. I like the additions of Klingberg, Strome, and Vetrano. Those are guys that, some of them you could also flip if things end up not going too well at before the deadline. And then obviously you have another year with Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale. If Troy Terry can kind of replicate the last season, Mason McTavish coming in, I think it's going to be another good year to kind of build the core and make some moves, add some more draft picks, possibly let the younger kids develop. Who knows? Maybe they could surprise and make it, but I really do think out of all this, John Gibson needs a bounce back, so if they want to go anywhere. Next up, Seattle. Really rough first season for them in the NHL. I think everyone's expectations were very high because of how Vegas did their first season, but that's not really how expansion teams go. So Seattle had a rough year. They added Burakovsky, added Bjorkstrand to the offense. That should definitely help. Hopefully Tanev healthy for a year. If Matty Beniers, Shane Wright can come in and tear things up, it'll definitely make this team more entertaining to watch. And definitely Philip Grubauer needs a bounce back year because Grubauer is way better than the season he just put up this last year. But again, this team is second year. I think they'll be better, but I still have them finishing down seventh in the league. Last place, I have the Sharks, a team just refusing to accept the rebuild. They did a little bit. Trading away Brent Burns is definitely going to hurt them on the back end. I don't expect much out of this team this year. It'll be fun to see maybe William Eklund come in and play, but other than that, I think they're going to have a rough season, and I think it's going to really wake up the management. They need to officially commit to a rebuild. So, eighth place for San Jose. Moving on to the Atlantic, I have the Maple Leafs finishing first. They still have a great core in Toronto. Giordano coming back on a very team-friendly contract was nice to see. And, I think this team has what it takes to win the division. Now, playoffs is a whole other question, but the biggest deciding factor with this team is going to be Matt Murray. I think he can bounce back. I think he can play even above average. This team should be good enough to get them there. So first place for Toronto. Second, I have Tampa Bay. They did lose some guys in the offseason, obviously losing Palat and McDonough, but they're still the Tampa Bay Lightning. They still have a great group. You have Kucherov, you have Point, you have Stamkos, Killorn, and then, newer guys that can play the full year now, like Nick Paul, Brandon Hagel, like the defense, and they have Andrei Vasilevsky. So this team should have no problem getting into the playoffs and being a threat once again. Third place, I have Florida. I see a lot of people saying they have Florida missing the playoffs. Now, losing Huberdeau, Marchment, and Uyghur is a big blow, but this team is still really great. You still have Barkov, Duclair, you still have Bennett, you still have Reinhardt. You have a great group there. Lost Giroux as well, but I think this team is going to take a step back. They're going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, but they're not going to be as good as last year. If Spencer Knight and Sergei Bobrovsky can put up some good numbers, I think they will be just fine. And the last playoff spot, I have the Ottawa Senators making it. They finally, this year, I think, come out of the rebuild. It's been a long time since this team's seen postseason play, but I really like the offensive group. I think that top six is just probably one of the most deadly in the NHL. It's got to be up there like top five in the NHL. Adding DeBrincat, adding Giroux over. They changed things up. They have Talbot now in net, so Talbot-Forsberg tandem. I think this team should be ready for playoffs, as well as some rookie guys like Pinto and Sanderson can come in and play well. I really think this team should be able to get to the postseason this year finally. Missing the playoffs in fifth, I have the Boston Bruins. I think with the injuries they have, suffering those injuries, those guys missing months to start the season, I think is really going to hurt them, and I just don't think they're going to be able to recoup in enough time to make it, as well as this is an aging core for Boston. I think this is going to be a year they kind of realize that maybe the window has closed for them. I like Ullmark, Swayman, and net. They bring back Bergeron, David Krejci, but I just think that this is such a tough division, and Boston is going to fall short. And we saw that in the playoffs, with them, that they did have some trouble against some of the younger core team, like Carolina. So I'm having Boston missing here, which is going to be a surprise, but I think it'll happen. Next is the Detroit Red Wings. I think they're going to be much better than last year. They're going to be competitive, but I think there is still some work to be done with the offensive core. Adding David Perron was a great move. I really like seeing that. Ben Sherratt on the back end was questionable. I don't know how much that really helps this team, but another year of Seider and Raymond improving, and I like the addition of Ville Husso in net, but I just think this team is a couple pieces off, maybe like a year or two out from playoffs, but they definitely will be better than last year. Then we have Buffalo Sabres. It's going to be another rebuilding year. It'll be nice to see Owen Power play a full season this year in the NHL, and Alex Tuch as well play a full season with the Sabres. they're a rebuilding team. They had a strong finish to the season, but I think with the goaltending situation, they're a bit far out. I think it's 2 or 3 more years until this team can get serious about playoffs. And then we have Montreal finishing last. They're going to be another team in it for the Bedard sweepstakes. Monahan getting added was an interesting move. They can definitely flip him at the deadline for some picks and stuff. Slavkovsky should be fun to watch. They pick up Kirby Dach. They have a nice young core with this team. Caulfield as well for another year, but again, this team pretty miserable season last year. I can't see them doing much better, but maybe a little bit. Next, the Metro. I have Carolina. I'm very high on them. I love the additions of Brent Burns and Max Pacioretty to this team. If Freddie Anderson can be healthy a full year, that'll help greatly. Pacioretty will be hurt for a couple months, but I really like the core of this team. Teravainen and Aho. I like the offense. The defense is amazing. I love this team's defense. Shea, Pesci, Slavin. And I like the goaltending tandem as well. I think this team should have no issue getting to the playoffs, and I think they will be the division winners. Next, New York Rangers. New York, I mean, what a season they just had going to the Final Four. Very surprising seeing them get there. If Lafreniere and Capocacco can keep building, Adam Fox as well, keep getting those young guys better and better. I like Panarin, Kreider on this team. The offensive core, the defensive core is great. If Shesterkin can put up anywhere close to the numbers he did last year, this team is a lock for the playoffs for sure. Third, I have the Penguins. I don't think they're done yet. I think this team's going to keep going. It's something like 16 straight years in the playoffs. I think they're going to keep it going. You brought back Crosby, you brought back Malkin, you brought back Letang. Even if this team suffers injuries, they seem to just have that next guy in line to just come in and replace him. They did make a trade, getting Jeff Petrie on the back end. Should be interesting to see how that goes, but I don't think this team's going to do anything crazy. I don't think they're going to be like 100-point team, but I think they will be good enough to make it. And then in last, I have the Capitals, another team I don't think is done yet. I know many are kind of counting out Washington and Pittsburgh, thinking these teams are too old, the cores are done. I think Washington gets in. I think it's going to be a lot due to Darcy Kemper in net. I think he's going to have a really good season, going to prove himself on that new contract after winning the Stanley Cup. I like the addition of Dylan Strome. Obviously, Backstrom going to be hurt for a good majority of the season, but I think Strome is good enough to take over that second line center spot. Ovechkin chasing that record for Gretzky's goal record, so I think Washington makes it in. On the outside, I'm having Columbus. Johnny Gaudreau, most surprising pickup of the offseason. They lose Bjorkstrand, and that is a tough blow. I'm guessing they probably end up moving Nyquist as well. I think this team has a good foundation there. Kent Johnson coming up, Cole Sillinger. I think those guys are going to be relied on way too heavy down the middle in the center positions for them to really be able to make the playoffs. I think it's going to be too much pressure for the young guys. And the goaltending has been rough. Definitely need a bounce back. I think they're going to fall just short of making the playoffs. Next is New Jersey. I'm not sold as well on the goaltending for this team with Blackwood. He's had a rough couple seasons here now, and I think the defense as well, which I do like a lot of guys they have there. I'm not sure on the depth, and the offense is great as well. I just think it's depth with this team, and they're just still a young team. I think it's going to take. I think next year will be the year. I think maybe they're going to have to go out and grab more of a veteran goaltender this offseason if Blackwood has another off year. But I think this team is just one more year out from being a legit chance for playoffs. Next, I have the Islanders. Yes, the Islanders had whatever it was, 17 games or something crazy to start the season last year, all on the road. But still, I think this core is it's a pretty old core, and they did like nothing in the offseason to improve the team. They got Romanov on defense, but other than that, I mean, I don't know. I just think this team is aging. I think they need to shake up a lot of unperforming players last year. The goaltending's great. It's just the offense. I think their style of play as well. I think teams have figured out that kind of trap defensive style. I think teams have found out a way to kind of counter it. So I have the Islanders finishing seventh and eighth. Philadelphia, they look really bad last year. No Claude Giroux. Sean Couturier is going to be injured for a lot of the season. The defensive core and offense of this team looks really rough. Carter Hart has not looked good the past 2 seasons now. I just expect a pretty rough season. I think Philadelphia will be in the Bedard sweepstakes for sure. And for your big trophies, I have the Hurricanes winning the Stanley Cup this year. They've been a really good regular season team for the past couple of years. In the playoffs, they get far, but they just fall short. And I think this is going to be the year that they get to the finals. They win the cup. Burns, Pacioretty going to be there helping this core out, and I think Anderson healthy for a full year. All those things I said. I think this core is going to get it done this year. The runner-ups, I think Colorado is going to be good enough to get back to the finals, but they're just going to fall short. Yeah, I think that'd be an amazing playoff series. Carolina, Colorado. I think it would be one that would go probably 6 or 7 games, but I think Colorado will be the best. They're the best team in the West in my mind. Conn Smythe winner. Carolina wins the cup. I'd have Sebastian Aho. I think he takes a huge step in leadership and pulls this team forward to the Stanley Cup championship. Wins the Conn Smythe. Hart Trophy winner. Not surprising pick here. I have Connor McDavid. Also have him for the Hart Ross as well. Not going too out of the ballpark there. I think those are pretty safe picks. Rocket Richard, another safe pick here. Austin Matthews, 60-goal season this past year. This guy is just amazing goal scorer, probably the best in the league, up there with Ovechkin. I think if he keeps going at this rate, he could get Ovechkin numbers eventually down the road in his career. But yeah, just insane season from him. I think he'll close to match it. Vezina Trophy, I talked about earlier. I think UC Saros is going to be amazing this year. I think he breaks out, wins the Vezina. I think he's going to be the reason Nashville makes the playoffs. He's going to drag him in there. And yeah, I'm really high on Saros. Norris Trophy, not going to be a surprise here. Cale Makar, while Yossi and Hedman are great defensemen as well, Makar just had an amazing season. And winning the Stanley Cup, I think he's going to keep building. He's still super young as well. I think he can only get better. And I think if we see a defenseman with 100 points again in the NHL, I think Cale Makar is the player to do it. Selke Trophy, best two-way forward. I think it's going to be Mark Stone. I know I see a lot with O'Reilly. It's usually Bergeron's trophy to lose. He's always in the conversation or winning it every year. But I think Mark Stone is going to win it. I think he's going to have to be very good this year for Vegas to make playoffs, and he's going to have to stay healthy. So Mark Stone for the Selke. Rookie of the Year, I have Mason McTavish. I see a lot of Slafkovsky. I see some Matty Beniers, Owen Power, Shane Wright, but I think Mason McTavish, throw him on a line with Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry, I think it'd be really fun to watch, and he absolutely lit it up at the World Juniors with Canada. So, I'm really high on McTavish. And for the Jack Adams, obviously, if the team wins the Cup and if they win the division, Carolina, so I have Rob Brindamore winning it there. So those are my predictions for the season upcoming. Let me know where you'd have certain ranks or who you'd have winning certain trophies. And we'll see at the end of the season if any of these come true. A lot of these probably won't, but it's fun to predict. So thank you for watching.